We found the camp and landed amid a scene of devastation. All the tents were down, all the dogs dead, and we found other bodies, too. 11 men dead. Young Gedney was missing.
Are you all right, Professor Dyer? Charles, kill the tape.
I've got it already.
Professor, are you all right?
Yes. Yes, excuse me. I'll get a glass of water. Would either of you like something to drink?
No, thank you,
No,
Professor.
I'm fine, thanks. What a nutcase. This guy's senile?
He's about 70, and I thought this was going to be a boring story.
You don't believe any of this crap, do you?
It doesn't matter if I do or don't. It's still a hell of a story. Everyone always thought that it was odd how those people died, and the professor's explanation's a hell of a lot more interesting than the official version. I wonder what's taking him so long.
I'll bet he's drinking more than water.
You getting all this recorded?
Sure. How much of it you can use?
I apologize, Miss Ashton. Sometimes I get overwrought when I remember what we found.
That's all right, Professor. Are you ready to start again?
Yes, thank you. Where were we?
Just a second and we'll pick up again. Charlie, let me know when you're rolling.
Okay, ready, and...
Professor Dyer, what did you find when you landed at the expedition camp?
The place was a shambles. All the tents were down, the equipment scattered. 11 men were dead and one, Mr. Gedney, was missing. And the dogs, too, all seemed to be dead.
Seemed to be dead, Professor?
Yes, Miss Ashton, they were in ribbons, torn to pieces. We assumed that all of them had been killed. It was difficult to make an accurate count.
You reported that the lake expedition had been overwhelmed by a sudden storm.
So I did. And with no other witness, no other sane witness, everyone accepted that explanation. But God help me, I lied.
What did you really find, Dr. Dyer?
The camp really had been pulverized. All tents were down, all bodies frozen. But they had not died of a storm. Their backs had been snapped like twigs, and the dogs had been literally ripped apart. Curiously, both planes were intact, as was the fuel dump. All the books, most of the fossil specimens were there. Most, but not all.
I don't understand. What killed the men?
We did not understand either, Miss Ashton. Not then. Not a single one of the complete barrel-shaped monstrosities remained. Those 6 damaged ones had been buried standing up, the graves marked with those curious greenish star-shaped stones we had heard about. Danforth and I radioed base camp and arranged for McTighe, Sherman, and Ropes to fly out and retrieve all the remains and the 2 airplanes. Then we filled our planes' tanks with gasoline and took off, flying toward the mountains, for we had seen an unmistakable track in the snow, as of sledges, and they led up a rampart of snow and ice toward those accursed peaks, toward the mountains of madness.
Could Gedney have taken a dog sled?
Possibly, Danforth. Those may be his tracks leading up into the pass.
But how could he have moved so fast? And how could the dogs hold out for such a steep climb?
I don't know. But as long as there's a chance he's alive... Oh, there! The trail goes right over the pass. Do you see?
Yes, I do see. Hold on, Professor. We're at 17,000 feet. This pass is narrow. It's going to be tricky.
God! It's insane! Do you see it, Danforth?
Yes, maybe some sort of unknown geological force.
No, those are artificial constructions. The buildings, Danforth, as far as the eye can see, to the north, to the south. Buildings. It's a huge city.
No human made those blasphemous structures. It's a cyclopean maze of squared, curved, and angled blocks, stone towers and ramparts. Here in a land when nothing could have lived for 500,000 years.
And the tracks lead here. Oh, there, Danforth. There's a field of level snow. Set the plane down. We'll see if there's any trace of Gedney, or of any living thing.
This is an incredible story, Dr. Dyer.
It is not over, Miss Ashton. We did land the airplane in that hellish silent city. It was a tangle of buildings made from prodigious blocks of dark primordial slate. The general shape tended to be conical or pyramidal, though many were cylindrical, perfect cubes. Some were five-pointed angled edifices. All was monstrously weathered.
What people could have built this city?
We did not know. Not then. Many of the buildings had been broken open by eons of weathering, by glaciations. Danforth and I picked up, markings, suggestions of a trail. We followed it into one of those ruined structures. There we had our second great shock of the day.
It's huge, Professor.
No sign of poor Gedney. Shine your light on the walls, Danforth.
Murals. The whole wall is painted and sculpted.
Let's get closer. I can't make out any detail. Watch the floor. There's rubble everywhere.
My God! The mural shows pictures of the barrel monsters.
And so did they all. We had blundered into some kind of incredibly ancient museum or educational institution. There, painted or graven on the walls, was a curious and terrifying history. The history of the elder gods, of the great old ones, the subject of the Necronomicon. I took photographs as long as our flash guns and plates held out, and my incredulous eyes saw in fantastic detail an unbelievable story.
In an epoch so remote that not even the earth yet existed, the great old ones spread their wings and launched themselves forth through endless space.
In the frigid darkness they slept, and as they slept, the cold winds of light between the stars swept them onward, slowly onward.
After unimaginable time, they chanced upon the third planet from a yellow sun, and descended, and they wakened from their long sleep.
And the planet had primitive life.
And the great old ones found it fit for a place of
And they began to control the growth and development of life itself.
Dwelling beneath the southern sea, they took the stuff of life and created for themselves servants.
Shapeless and formless, these creatures could assume any conformation that proved useful.
And the great old ones saw what they had done, and it was good.
It was scarcely to be believed, but the barrel-shaped organisms were indeed the great old ones of myth and legend. And they had created their servants and had made for themselves a mighty city.
Shoggoths! My God, Professor, those are Shoggoths.
I don't understand.
The Necronomicon, it speaks of them. Primordial life without shape but sentient. The great old ones created them, but they turned on their creators and destroyed them. Destroyed Leng. Destroyed this city, the city of Leng.
Get a grip on yourself, Danforth.
Sorry, sir.
Help me illuminate the next section.
All right.
For their amusement, the great old ones meddled with the life of their new world and created the great
Over the
dinosaurs.
millennia, they played with their toys, and when they tired of them, they discarded them for
The
others.
birds of the air.
The great whales of the sea.
The ridiculous naked ape called mankind.
Eons passed and the old ones thrived.
Even when other invaders from beyond the stars threatened them.
Terrible eons, they did battle with the encroaching Cthulhuids and sealed them forever in the dreaming city of Rilia, lost
The
beneath
decimated old ones retreated to their last stronghold where their numbers lessened. They saw the continents drift and change.
Weary of the long epoch of war, they watched all for their city of land.
Fed by their creations, by the Shoggoths.
This is... I'm not quite sure what to say about it, Professor Dyer.
Oh, I know how incredible it sounds, Miss Ashton. But I have the photographs that I never dared reveal until now. And in my own mind, I am quite certain we human beings are not the product of divine creation or of normal evolution. We are descended from the toys the great old ones created for their amusement. We are discards, Miss Ashton. That is the only word. As we followed the incredible tale on the murals, we descended, and as we did so, the story changed. The Shoggoths at some point began to rebel against their masters, even to take on the shapes of the old ones, to speak with their voices. And as the history of the plateau of Ling continued, the murals grew more and more crude, more decadent. They told of a world losing warmth, of the old one's retreat to a sunless sea, a great underground ocean, as the continent of Antarctica cooled and froze, and as the rebellious Shoggoths became more and more troublesome. All the while we descended until...
But there's a dyer. There. Is that...
one of the sledges from the camp. And there, against the wall, there's something under that tarpaulin.
Oh, my God. It's Gedney. He's been ripped apart.
No. Dissected, Danforth. He's been scientifically dissected, and the sled dog as well.
Oh, over here. More sledges. All of them packed.
Let me cover Gedney again. God rest his soul. Lake was right. They weren't fossils, Danforth. They weren't fossils after all. The creatures that Lake found were sleeping. What's the sleep of 500,000 years to a creature that can survive the vacuum of outer space for a drift of 1 billion years?
That stench.
We must go forward.
Professor, no.
We must. We're scientists, Danforth, and we are men.
The underground sea. This is where the great old ones fled to the dark waters.
Not all of them. You see there, that huge barrel-shaped form down the slope? And over there?
Dead. 5, 6. There's another and another. All 7 dead, with their heads ripped away. That green, stinking ichor.
Let's go.
Well, what about Gedney's body?
There's nothing we can do for him now. Come on, Danforth, we must hurry.
Something there, behind us. Down in that dark water. It's moving.
Run for it!
It's coming after us! Run!
No, this way!
South Station.
What? Oh, hurry, man!
Boston Commons. Washington Station. Park Street Station. Kendall.
Quiet, Danforth.
Central Station.
We aren't in the subway.
Copley Square.
Here in this niche. Quiet, for your life.
Harvard
Quiet.
Station.
How can I describe it? It was the utter, objective embodiment of the fantastic novelist thing that should not be. A great black plastic mass, plastered over with eyes forming, dissolving, reforming. Luminous, but with shades not known on our Earth, filling the entire tunnel, a shapeless mass of protoplasmic bubbles filling the air with an indescribable stench and crying out in a piping, weird voice, mocking the voices of the great old ones, I think. A hateful, high-pitched cry of... Somehow or other, it missed us. After it passed, Danforth and I fled madly for the surface, and after what seemed like hours, we reached it. Our airplane was there, intact, and Danforth had enough self-control to fly it. But even then his mind was slipping away and he babbled.
The Necronomicon speaks of such things. The primal white jelly, the eyes in the darkness, the color out of space. Tekalili, Tekalili. The great old ones and the dwellers in darkness. The mountains, Professor. The mountains of madness. Tekalili, Tekalili.
By miracle, we reached base camp. Danforth smashed up the plane in attempting to land, but neither of us was badly hurt. Pabody and I conferred and agreed on the story that we released, that a storm had overwhelmed Lake and his men. And the truth has not come out until today.
I understand that to this day, Stephen Danforth is an inmate of Arkham Asylum.
Yes, he's insane. Completely, hopelessly mad.
And you wish to warn everyone against returning to Antarctica because you fear they will meet more of the great old ones.
Good God, no! What, didn't I make it plain? Don't you see? The great old ones no longer exist. They're extinct. Their hidden underground world has been taken over by the Shoggoths, by those ever-hungry semi-sentient masses of protoplasm. They defeated the great old ones, devoured them, and they wait there, in the cold, in the darkness. They wait for us.
But the old ones killed your friends. According to you, they even dissected one of them.
Yes. As the great old ones escaped, trying to find their ancient home, they did kill. Yes, they took one body and dissected it, as a human scientist would, for the sake of knowledge. Oh, don't you see, Miss Ashton? Those 7 living creatures returned to a place where they thought they would find their own kind, and instead they found horror.
You almost sound sorry for them.
I am sorry for us all. Poor Danforth, poor Lake, poor Gedney, and poor old ones. After all, they were not evil things of their kind. What had they done? That awful awakening in the cold of an unknown epoch, attacked by furry quadrupeds, surrounded by the hairless apes they themselves had created. Yes, they killed, but then they studied, scientists to the last. What had they done, Miss Ashton, that we would not have done in their place? God, what intelligence and persistence! Radiance, vegetables, star spawn, whatever they had been, Miss Ashton, they were men! They were men! They were men!
In Arkham, Massachusetts, this is Alice Ashton reporting for WCTH. We now return you to our studio.